You know those stories where two people say we're just friends way too fast? Yeah, here that friendship comes with sarcasm, tension, laughing at the worst moments, and a growing list of situations that should be normal, but aren't. And the best part is watching them try to stay in control, especially when everyone around them doesn't buy the just friends act for a second. Paige Holloway had exactly 3 things on her mind as she walked through the dimly lit parking garage. Her sister Claire's obsession with true crime podcasts, the leftover Chinese food waiting in her fridge, and whether she'd locked her apartment door that morning. Normal thoughts for a Tuesday evening after dropping off Claire's forgotten lunch at her law firm. What she did not have on her mind was becoming a violent criminal. The parking garage was nearly empty, her footsteps echoing off concrete walls in a way that made her spine straighten. She picked up her pace, counting rows until she reached her ancient Honda Civic. Almost there. Just 20 more feet. That's when she heard them. Footsteps. Behind her. Matching her rhythm. Paige's heart kicked into overdrive. She walked faster. The footsteps walked faster. Every true crime podcast Claire had ever forced her to listen to came flooding back in terrifying detail. Stay calm. Don't run. Running triggers predators. But also, definitely run. She was almost jogging now, her purse banging against her hip, keys clutched between her fingers like Claire had taught her. Makeshift weapon, her sister had said. Go for the eyes. The footsteps were closer, much closer. Excuse me. That was it. The voice. The male voice in the empty parking garage. Paige whirled around, adrenaline pumping, and her knee came up with a force she didn't know she possessed. Direct hit. The man doubled over with a strangled groan that echoed through the garage, dropping to one knee. Paige backed away, hands shaking, preparing to run or strike again if needed. She was a survivor. She was strong. I was just trying to return. Your wallet, the man gasped, one hand extended, waving a familiar brown leather rectangle. Paige's blood turned to ice. Her wallet. Her wallet that must have fallen out of her purse. Her wallet that this kind stranger was attempting to return before she'd just kneed him in the... Oh my God, she breathed, hands flying to her mouth. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. If this story is touching your heart, show your support. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Every action helps us keep bringing you new stories full of emotion. The man was still bent over, breathing hard. From what she could see in the fluorescent lighting, he was tall. Very tall, with dark hair and a build that suggested he actually used his gym membership, unlike her. He was wearing an expensive-looking charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. I didn't know the footsteps and the empty garage, and I've been listening to too many true crime podcasts. Paige Victoria Holloway. Paige spun around to see her sister Claire sprinting across the parking garage in her pencil skirt and heels, face pale with horror. Claire skidded to a stop, looked at Paige, looked at the man still hunched over in pain, and looked back at Paige. Did you just... Claire's voice climbed an octave. Tell me you did not just knee my boss in the... Your what? Paige's voice came out as a squeak. The man finally straightened up, slowly, carefully, like a man who'd just survived a natural disaster. And oh God, he was even more imposing at full height. He had the kind of face that belonged on billboards or in corner offices, with views of the city. Strong jaw, dark eyes that were currently watering slightly, and an expression somewhere between amused and traumatized. Mr. Whitmore, I'm so sorry, Claire was saying, practically vibrating with mortification. My sister didn't know. She thought... It's fine, Claire. The man, Mr. Whitmore, said, his voice slightly strained. He turned those dark eyes to Paige, and she felt her face burn hot enough to glow in the dark. Though I have to say that's the most effective self-defense move I've ever experienced firsthand. Paige wanted the concrete floor to open up and swallow her whole. I'm so sorry. I really thought that I was a parking garage predator. He handed her the wallet, managing a slight smile despite obvious discomfort. Can't fault your survival instincts or your aim. Claire looked like she was contemplating murder, specifically Paige's murder. Mr. Whitmore is the CEO of the firm, Declan Whitmore, the man I talk about constantly, the youngest CEO in the company's history, the one who... Claire, Declan interrupted gently, still watching Paige with an unreadable expression. I think your sister has suffered enough embarrassment for one evening. Paige felt tears of mortification pricking her eyes. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do? Hospital? Ice? A lawyer for the inevitable assault charges? The corner of his mouth twitched. I'll survive, though I might need to rethink my approach to returning lost items. Give me your number, Paige blurted out, then immediately wanted to die at how that sounded. I mean, so I can call you. To apologize properly. Maybe buy you coffee or a medical consultation? Declan studied her for a long moment, and Paige couldn't read his expression. Finally, he pulled out his phone. All right, but fair warning, I might bring a bodyguard to that coffee meeting. Despite everything, despite the mortification and horror, and the fact that she'd just assaulted her sister's boss, Paige felt a small, inappropriate laugh bubble up. She quickly gave him her number, texting him immediately so he'd have hers. As she and Claire hurried to their respective cars, Claire hissing mortified commentary the entire way, Paige couldn't help glancing back. Declan Whitmore was still standing there watching her leave, one hand absently rubbing his knee, and unless she was completely mistaken, he was smiling. I'm going to kill you, Claire announced. Slowly, painfully. And I'll represent myself at the trial. Paige slumped against her car. Get in line. I'm pretty sure I just murdered my own dignity first. But as she drove home, she couldn't stop thinking about that smile, or those dark eyes, or the fact that she'd just kneed the most attractive man she'd ever assaulted in a parking garage. It was going to be a long week, 3 days. Paige had stared at Declan Whitmore's number in her phone for 3 entire days, composing and deleting text messages, picking up the phone and setting it down again, and generally behaving like a teenager with her first crush. Which was ridiculous. This wasn't a crush. This was damage control, professional courtesy, an attempt to salvage what little dignity she had left after assaulting a stranger in a parking garage. Just call him, Claire said for the 15th time, sprawled across Paige's couch with a glass of wine. The longer you wait, the weirder it gets. What if he's pressing charges and just waiting for me to incriminate myself? He's not pressing charges. He thought it was funny. He was being polite because you're his employee and he's a professional. Claire threw a pillow at her. Call him. So Paige called him. It rang twice before his voice came through, smooth and professional. Declan Whitmore. Every prepared speech fled Paige's brain. Hi, it's Paige, Paige Holloway. We met. Well, I need you. In the parking garage. 3 days ago. There was a pause that lasted approximately 17 years. I remember, he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Hard to forget, actually. I've been walking funny ever since. Paige closed her eyes in mortification. I'm calling to apologize. Again. And to offer to buy you coffee, if you're free. And if you don't hate me. I don't hate you, he said, sounding amused, though I might insist on bringing a bodyguard. That's fair. Totally fair. I deserve that. I'm teasing Paige. The way he said her name made something flutter in her chest that she absolutely refused to examine. Oh, right, of course, teasing, funny. Coffee sounds good, he said. There's a place near the office called Hartley's, tomorrow at 10. Yes, perfect. I'll be there. She hesitated. And I promise not to assault you again. Much appreciated, though I might wear protective gear just in case. Paige was still cringing when she hung up. Claire was grinning like a maniac. He's flirting with you. He's mocking me. Same thing. Declan arrived at Hartley's Coffee at exactly 10 o'clock, which gave him time to observe Paige Holloway hurrying down the sidewalk at 10:07, slightly out of breath, her auburn hair escaping from whatever clip she'd used to tame it. He'd spent the last 3 days trying not to think about her, about the way her green eyes had gone wide with horror when she realized what she'd done, about her immediate concern for his well-being despite her obvious embarrassment, about the fact that he'd gotten kneed in the groin and his first thought after the pain subsided was that she was beautiful, which was insane. He was 38 years old, the CEO of a prestigious law firm, and perfectly capable of meeting an attractive woman without acting like an idiot. Except when she walked into the coffee shop, scanning the room with those expressive eyes until they landed on him, he felt something in his chest shift in a way that had nothing to do with residual injury. I'm so sorry I'm late, she said, dropping into the chair across from him. Traffic was... well, actually no, traffic was fine. I just have terrible time management skills. Declan had prepared to maintain professional distance, to accept her apology gracefully and move on. Instead, he heard himself say, Should I be worried? First the violent tendencies, now chronic lateness. Are there other warning signs I should know about? Her mouth dropped open, then she laughed, a real surprised laugh that made her whole face light up. Wow, you really don't pull punches, do you? I find it's better to address concerns up front. For instance, do you have any other self-defense moves I should be aware of? Only the ones they taught in that 6-week course I took. Want me to demonstrate? She mimed a throat jab, and he had to fight back a smile. I'll pass, thanks. They ordered coffee. She got something complicated with extra foam, he got black, and settled into what should have been an awkward apology session. Instead, it became the most entertaining conversation Declan had had in months. Seriously, though, Paige said, wrapping both hands around her mug. I am truly, genuinely sorry. I've been listening to too many crime podcasts with Claire. She's obsessed with murder mysteries. And you thought I looked like a murderer. You looked like footsteps in a dark parking garage, she corrected. Context is everything. Fair point. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. She had a sprinkling of freckles across her nose that he hadn't noticed in the parking garage, probably because he'd been doubled over in pain. For what it's worth, your form was excellent. Where'd you learn that? 6-week self-defense course at the community center. Clearly, I absorbed the lessons. Perhaps too well? She groaned, dropping her face into her hands. I'm never going to live this down, am I? Probably not, he agreed cheerfully. I'm thinking of having it engraved on a plaque. On this spot, Declan Whitmore's dignity met its end. Paige peeked at him through her fingers, and he could see she was fighting a smile. You're enjoying this? Immensely. She sat up straighter, composing herself. Well, Mr. Whitmore, Declan. Declan, she corrected, and he liked the way his name sounded in her voice. I promise to never knee you again, and I'm buying your coffee. And if there's anything else I can do to make it up to you. Dinner, he said, surprising himself. She blinked. What? Have dinner with me. Friday night. Where had that come from? He didn't date casually. He barely dated at all, too focused on work and building the firm. But something about the way she challenged him, didn't treat him like the untouchable CEO everyone at the office did, made him want more of her attention. Paige's cheeks flushed pink. Is this like a pity dinner? Because you feel bad that I feel bad? It's a you're interesting and I'd like to know you better dinner. Even after I assaulted you. Especially after you assaulted you. Keeps things exciting. She laughed again, and Declan realized he wanted to make her do that as often as possible. Okay, Friday, but I'm still buying this coffee. Deal. They talked for another hour, long after their cups were empty. He learned she worked as a freelance graphic designer, preferred old movies to new ones, and had an irrational fear of geese. She learned he'd built the firm from nearly nothing, couldn't cook to save his life, and had a younger brother he was fiercely protective of. When they finally stood to leave, Paige extended her hand with exaggerated formality. Thank you for not pressing charges, Mr. Whitmore. He took her hand, noticing how small it felt in his, how warm. Thank you for the attempted murder, Ms. Holloway. It's been memorable. As he walked back to the office, Declan found himself smiling at nothing. His assistant, Margaret, took one look at him and raised her eyebrows. Good meeting. Very good, he said, and disappeared into his office before she could interrogate him further. Paige practically floated home. Claire called halfway there, demanding details. He asked me to dinner. What? Friday night. He asked me to dinner. Claire, I think he was flirting with me. I told you. Paige couldn't stop smiling. Not when she got home, not when she tried to work on her design projects, not when she went to bed that night. She'd gone into that coffee shop prepared to grovel and leave. Instead, she'd spent an hour trading barbs with the most attractive man she'd ever met, who apparently found her violence charming rather than criminal. As she drifted off to sleep, she realized something. She'd smiled more during that one coffee meeting than she had in the entire previous week, and she had a feeling Friday was going to be even better. 3 days after the coffee incident, Paige was starting to think of her life in terms of incidents now. Her phone buzzed with a message from Declan. Question: do you prefer books or more violent activities? Paige snorted coffee through her nose. She was never going to live this down. Books. Definitely books. Why are you like this? Just gathering intel on potential threats. Safety first. I hate you. No, you don't. There's a bookstore on Maple Street. Old books, creaky floors, allegedly haunted. Interested? Paige's heart did a stupid little flip. When? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I'll bring pepper spray. Hilarious. She showed up at 2:14 because apparently her chronic lateness was a personality trait now, not a choice. Declan was already inside Hartley & Sons books, a 3-story labyrinth of floor-to-ceiling shelves, rolling ladders, and the kind of atmospheric lighting that made everything feel like a secret. He was browsing the classics section, and Paige took a moment to just look at him. He'd traded his usual suit for dark jeans and a grey sweater that did absolutely unfair things to his shoulders. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his fingers through it, and he looked younger. More relaxed, more dangerous to her equilibrium. "You're late," he said without turning around. "How did you—" "I can feel the disturbance in the force when you arrive." He glanced over his shoulder, and that hint of a smile was back. Also, the door chimes. "Show off." Paige moved to stand beside him, scanning the shelf he'd been examining. "Steinbeck?" "Rereading East of Eden. You?" "Trying to find something new. I've been stuck in a reading slump." Declan pulled a book from the shelf and handed it to her. "Try this. Possession by A.S. Byatt. It's about literary scholars uncovering a secret romance through letters." Paige examined the cover, then looked up at him skeptically. "You've read this? Is that so surprising? You're a corporate lawyer who probably reads contracts for fun." "CEO," he corrected. "And I do read contracts for fun. But I also have depth. Layers. I'm like an onion. You make people cry?" He laughed, really laughed, and Paige felt absurdly proud of herself. "Are you always this quick?" "Only when properly caffeinated." They wandered through the stacks, pulling books, trading recommendations, arguing good-naturedly about whether classic literature was superior to contemporary fiction. Declan had opinions, strong ones, but he listened to hers too, actually considered them instead of just waiting for his turn to talk. It was nice. More than nice. "Oh!" Paige spotted a volume on the top shelf, something she'd been looking for months. "I didn't know they had this." She reached up, straining on her tiptoes. The book remained frustratingly out of reach. "Need help?" Declan's voice came from directly behind her. "I've got it," she insisted, stretching higher. Then his arm extended past hers, easily reaching the book, and suddenly he was right there. His chest brushed against her back, his other hand steadying himself against the shelf beside her head. She could smell his cologne, something clean and woody that made her want to lean back into him. He pulled the book down, but didn't step away immediately. His voice was lower when he spoke, close to her ear. "This one?" Paige couldn't breathe properly. "Yes, thank you." For a moment, neither of them moved. Paige could feel the heat radiating from him, could hear his breathing. Was it slightly faster than normal? Then he stepped back, and she immediately missed the warmth. She turned to face him, and something in his expression made her pulse race. His dark eyes were focused on her face with an intensity that made her forget they were in a public bookstore. "Paige, should we check out the second floor?" she blurted, chickening out of whatever was about to happen. Something flickered across his face. Disappointment. But he nodded. "Lead the way." The second floor had a small cafe tucked into the corner, all mismatched vintage furniture and the smell of fresh coffee. They claimed a worn velvet love seat near the window, their purchases stacked between them. "So," Declan said, settling in with his coffee, "tell me something you've never told anyone before." Paige raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a first date request." "Is this a date?" Her cheeks warmed. "Isn't it?" "I was hoping so, but I didn't want to presume after the assault incident. Are you ever going to let me live that down?" "Absolutely not." He grinned. "It's my favorite story. How I met my—" He stopped abruptly. "Your what?" "My assailant," he finished, but something in his tone suggested that wasn't what he'd been about to say. Paige's heart was doing gymnastics now. "Fine. Something I've never told anyone. I'm terrified of successful people." His eyebrows rose. "Explain." "They make me feel like I'm not doing enough with my life, like I should have accomplished more by now." She picked at the edge of her coffee cup. "I'm a freelance designer who works in yoga pants and hasn't left her apartment in 3 days. You're a CEO who probably has people whose entire job is to organize your other people. I have one assistant, Margaret, who mostly tells me when I'm being an idiot." Declan shifted closer, and Paige was hyper-aware of how small the love seat was. "And for the record, I think you're doing exactly what you should be doing. You're happy, aren't you?" "Most days." Then you're ahead of half the successful people I know. His expression turned serious. Success isn't just corner offices and board meetings, Paige. It's building a life you don't want to escape from. She stared at him, something warm blooming in her chest. That's unexpectedly philosophical. I'm an onion, remember? Layers. They stayed until the cafe started closing, talking about everything and nothing. When they finally left, the sun was setting, painting the street in shades of orange and pink. Thank you for this, Paige said, as they stood on the sidewalk, her stack of books tucked under her arm. Thank you for not assaulting me again. She shoved his shoulder playfully. I'm never living that down, am I? Never. He caught her hand before she could pull it back, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. Same time next week? Paige's breath caught. Yes. Good. He released her hand slowly, like he didn't really want to. Try not to attack any strangers in the meantime. She was still smiling when she got home, and when she opened the book he'd recommended, she found a note tucked inside, written in bold handwriting. Page 42. Reminds me of you. In a good way. As she turned to page 42 and read, she looked up at him with eyes full of laughter and intelligence. Paige pressed the book to her chest and let herself feel it, this strange, wonderful, terrifying thing growing between them. It felt a lot like falling. Declan was losing his mind, and it was entirely Paige Holloway's fault. He'd built a multi-million-dollar law firm from the ground up. He negotiated with senators and corporate giants. He was known for his composure, his strategic thinking, his unshakable control. And yet here he was, changing his shirt for the third time because he was picking Paige up in an hour, and suddenly nothing in his closet looked right. You're being ridiculous, he told his reflection. His reflection didn't argue. His phone buzzed. Running 5 minutes late. Shocking, I know. Pah! Declan smiled, despite himself. Take your time. I'll bring reading material to occupy myself while I wait. Rude. Accurate. 20 minutes later, because of course she was more than 5 minutes late, Paige emerged from her apartment building wearing a green sundress that matched her eyes and made Declan forget how to form coherent thoughts. Hi, she said breathlessly, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. Sorry, I couldn't find my keys. Where were they? In my hand. Declan laughed. Of course they were. Come on, we're losing the light. He'd planned this carefully. The riverside overlook was a 20-minute drive outside the city, a clifftop viewpoint that most tourists didn't know about. He'd been there once before, years ago, and remembered thinking it would be the perfect place to bring someone special. He just hadn't expected to find someone special quite like this. Paige was quiet during the drive, staring out the window with a small smile on her lips. Declan found himself hyper-aware of her presence, the way she hummed along softly to the radio, the way she tucked one leg under herself in the passenger seat, completely comfortable. So where are you taking me? She asked finally. Should I be concerned? You could be a serial killer for all I know. Didn't we establish that you're the dangerous one in this relationship? She turned to him, eyebrow raised. Relationship. Declan felt his neck heat. Figure of speech. Uh-huh. But she was smiling. When they arrived, the sun was just beginning its descent, painting the sky in brilliant streaks of orange, pink, and gold. The overlook was empty except for them, the city sprawling below like a carpet of lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk. Oh, Paige breathed, stepping up to the railing. Declan, this is beautiful. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Yeah, it is. She glanced at him and caught him staring. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she turned back to the view and he saw her cheeks flush pink. See that building? He moved to stand beside her, pointing. The tall one with the blue lights? That's my office, 32nd floor. Do you ever get dizzy up there? Sometimes, but the view makes up for it. He wasn't talking about the city view anymore, and from the way she bit her lip, she knew it. The wind picked up, blowing her hair across her face. Before he could think better of it, Declan reached out and tucked it behind her ear, his fingers lingering for just a second against her cheek. Paige's breath hitched. You're staring again. You're worth staring at. That's a line. Doesn't make it less true. She turned to face him fully, and they were close now, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, could count the freckles across her nose if he wanted to. Declan, she said softly. What are we doing? It was a good question. The smart answer would be to step back, to maintain professional distance, to remember that her sister worked for him, and this was complicated. But standing here with the sunset painting her hair copper and gold, her eyes searching his face, smart seemed overrated. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I don't want to stop." "Me neither." They stood like that for a long moment, the tension thick enough to cut. Then Paige's stomach growled loudly, and they both burst into laughter. "Romantic," she groaned, covering her face. "Practical," he corrected. "Come on. I know a place." The place was a gastro market downtown, a converted warehouse filled with food stalls from around the world, string lights crisscrossing overhead, communal tables packed with people. It was loud, chaotic, and perfect. "Choose anything you want," Declan said. "We'll share." They ended up with Korean tacos, Spanish patatas bravas, Italian arancini, and Thai mango sticky rice. They claimed a corner of a table and dove in, trading bites and commentary. "Okay, this is incredible," Paige said around a mouthful of taco. "How did I not know about this place? You've been too busy assaulting people in parking garages." She threw a napkin at him. "Are you going to bring that up every single time we—" "Yes, you're the worst. And yet here you are. Unfortunately, the food is worth it." "Just the food?" He leaned closer, challenging. Paige met his eyes, something bold flashing in hers. "The company's acceptable." "Acceptable. Above average. I'll take it." They tried everything, Paige insisting he taste the spiciest dish at the Indian stall. 2 bites in, his eyes were watering. "Water," he managed. "I warned you." She was laughing so hard she could barely stand, running to grab him a drink. When she came back, she found him red-faced but grinning. "You did that on purpose." "Maybe." She handed him the water, which he drained in 3 gulps. "But you survived. Barely. I'm starting to think you actually do want to kill me. Death by 1,000 small humiliations. It's my long-term plan. How's it working?" She looked at him, really looked at him, and her smile softened. "Surprisingly well." Later, walking back to his car through the lamplit streets, Declan found himself doing something he never did, not planning the next move. Usually, he strategized everything. Every meeting, every conversation, every relationship was a chess game. But with Paige, he just wanted to exist in the moment. "Thank you for tonight," she said as they reached her apartment. "The sunset, the food, everything. Thank you for not being on time," he said. "It gave me time to panic about my outfit choices." "You panicked?" She looked delighted. "The great Declan Whitmore panicked." "You have that effect on me." Her smile turned shy. "Good, because you have the same effect on me." He walked her to a door, hands in his pockets to keep from reaching for her. "Not yet. This was too good to rush. Good night, Paige." "Good night, Declan." He was halfway to his car when she called out, "Hey, same time next week?" He turned back, grinning. "Try to stop me." As he drove home, Declan realized he was smiling at nothing. His phone buzzed at a red light. "I had fun tonight, even if you are going to hold the parking garage incident over my head forever." P. Forever is a long time. But yes, probably. I had fun too. Sleep well. You too. Try not to dream about your tragic injury. Too late. It haunts me. Drama queen. Guilty as charged. He went to bed still smiling. And if he dreamed about green eyes and sunset-painted hair, well, that was between him and his unconscious mind. But the real problem, the one he was just starting to acknowledge, was that he was falling for Paige Holloway, and he had no idea how to stop, or if he even wanted to. "I don't know anything about art," Paige confessed, as they stood outside the Riverside Contemporary Gallery. "I mean, I like looking at it, but I couldn't tell you the difference between Impressionism and other art things." Declan smiled, holding the door open for her. "Good thing I brought you then." "Oh, great. Another opportunity for you to show off how cultured and perfect you are. I prefer well-rounded and devastatingly charming. I prefer insufferable. You're here anyway. The gallery has free wine on Thursdays." "Ah." He pressed a hand to his chest in mock pain. "And here I thought you enjoyed my company." Paige grinned up at him. "The jury's still out." The truth was the jury had reached a verdict weeks ago, and it was terrifyingly unanimous. She was falling for Declan Whitmore, hard, fast, and completely against her better judgment. The man was successful, gorgeous, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in her despite the fact that she'd assaulted him upon first meeting. It made no sense. And yet here she was, spending her Thursday evening at an art gallery instead of binge-watching cooking shows in her pajamas. The gallery was smaller than she expected, with white walls and dramatic lighting that made each piece feel important. Declan guided her to the first exhibit, his hand hovering near the small of her back, not quite touching, but close enough that she felt the warmth. "This is interesting," he murmured, studying a large abstract canvas covered in aggressive slashes of red and black. "It looks angry," Paige offered. "Exactly. See how the artist used a palette knife instead of brushes? You can tell from the texture, thick impasto technique. The paint is built up in layers, almost three-dimensional." Paige turned to stare at him. "How do you know that?" He shrugged, moving to the next piece. "I took some art history courses in college. And my mother's a painter." "Your mother's a painter? How have we talked for weeks and I didn't know this?" "You never asked." But he was smiling, clearly pleased that he'd surprised her. They moved through the gallery slowly, Declan pointing out techniques she'd never noticed. The way light was captured in one painting, the deliberate imperfections in another, the story told through color choices in a third. He spoke about art the way most people spoke about their favorite movies, with genuine passion and knowledge. Paige found herself less interested in the paintings and more interested in watching him talk about them. "You're staring," he said without looking at her. "You're being unexpectedly fascinating." "Unexpectedly?" He turned to her with raised eyebrows. "What did you expect?" "I don't know." "Corporate robot CEO who only talks about quarterly earnings and merger acquisitions." "I'm wounded," but his eyes were laughing. "For the record, I'm excellent at talking about quarterly earnings. Want me to demonstrate?" "Absolutely not." They stopped in front of a painting that was nothing but blue. Dozens of shades layered and blended until it felt like staring into water or sky or some infinite space in between. "What do you see?" Declan asked quietly. Paige tilted her head, considering. "Peace or maybe loneliness, I can't decide if it's calming or sad. It can be both." He was standing close now, his arm brushing hers. "The artist is from Seattle. She painted this after her divorce, called it Learning to Breathe." "That's heartbreaking. Or hopeful. Depends on how you look at it." Paige glanced up at him and found him already looking at her. For a moment, the gallery faded away. The other visitors, the paintings, everything except the intensity in his dark eyes. "Declan, wine." A cheerful gallery employee appeared with a tray. "We have red or white?" The spell broke. Paige stepped back, accepting a glass of white wine with shaking hands. Declan took red, his jaw tight. They wandered to the next room, but something had shifted. The air felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. Every accidental touch, his hand steadying her elbow when she stumbled on the threshold, her fingers brushing his when they both reached for the exhibit guide, felt electric. "There's a sculpture garden out back," Declan said, his voice rougher than usual. "Want to see it?" Outside, the evening air was cool and welcome. The sculpture garden was lit with subtle ground lighting, casting dramatic shadows across abstract metal forms and smooth stone figures. Paige stopped in front of a sculpture of two figures, reaching toward each other but not quite touching. "This one makes me sad." "Why?" "They're so close, but they can't quite connect. Like there's some invisible barrier." Declan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "Maybe they're afraid." "Of what?" "Of what happens when they actually touch. Of changing things. Of ruining something good by wanting more." Paige's heart was pounding. They weren't talking about the sculpture anymore. What if wanting more makes it better? What if it doesn't? She turned to face him fully. "You're overthinking this. I'm a lawyer. Overthinking is my job." "CEO," she corrected automatically. "Same principle." He smiled slightly. I don't want to mess this up, Paige. Whatever this is." Her chest felt too full. "You're not going to mess it up." "You don't know that. I'm difficult to work with. I'm demanding. I have control issues. My last girlfriend said I was married to my job." "Was she right?" "At the time? Yes." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "But that was before I met someone who makes me want to leave the office at reasonable hours, who makes me laugh at myself, who literally brought me to my knees in a parking garage." Paige laughed, despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "I will never escape that story, will I?" "Never." His expression softened. "But I'm glad it happened." Best worst first meeting I've ever had. They stood there in the sculpture garden, surrounded by art and possibility. Not quite touching, but closer than they'd ever been. Paige wanted to kiss him so badly it hurt, but something held her back, the same thing holding him back, probably. The fear that once they crossed that line, there'd be no going back. "We should go," Declan said finally. "I promised you dinner after this." "You did? I'm promising now. Retroactively. That's not how promises work. I'm a CEO, I make the rules." "Lawyer," she corrected. Same thing. They bickered all the way to the restaurant, a tiny Italian place with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. The tension from the sculpture garden eased into something comfortable again, familiar. But as Paige watched Declan argue with her about whether pineapple belonged on pizza, it absolutely did not, according to him, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't just falling for him anymore, she'd already fallen. And from the way he was looking at her across the candlelight, he'd fallen too. The question was, what were they going to do about it? Saturday afternoon found Paige wandering through the Ashford Botanical Gardens with Declan, surrounded by the heady scent of late-blooming roses and the soft buzz of bees. She'd arrived only 12 minutes late this time, which Declan had declared a personal record worthy of celebration. "I'm improving," she'd argued. "You're still late, but less late. That's growth. I'll alert the media." Now they walked the winding gravel paths, Paige's hand occasionally brushing against his as they moved from the rose garden to the Japanese water garden, where koi flashed orange and gold beneath lily pads. "My mom used to bring me here when I was a kid," Declan said, pausing by the wooden bridge that arched over the pond. "Every Sunday after church, she'd sketch the flowers while I ran around being a nuisance." Paige smiled at the image. "I can't picture you as a nuisance. I was 7. All 7-year-olds are nuisances." He leaned against the bridge railing, looking out over the water. "She'd pack these elaborate picnic lunches, cucumber sandwiches, lemonade, those little cookies with jam in the middle. Made me sit still for at least 20 minutes while we ate." "That sounds lovely." It was. His voice went soft. "She passed away 3 years ago, stroke. Very sudden." Paige's chest tightened. "Declan, I'm so sorry." "Thank you." He was quiet for a moment. "I still come here sometimes. When work gets overwhelming or I need to think, it helps." Without planning to, Paige reached out and took his hand. His fingers immediately closed around hers, warm and strong. "Thank you for sharing this with me," she said softly. He looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. "Thank you for listening." They stood like that for a long moment, the afternoon sun filtering through the willow trees, the sound of water trickling over rocks. Paige wanted to say something profound, something that would convey how much it meant that he trusted her with this piece of himself, but words felt inadequate. So she squeezed his hand instead. Declan squeezed back. They continued through the gardens hand in hand, stopping to admire the orchid greenhouse, where Declan attempted to pronounce the Latin names and Paige laughed at his terrible accent, and the herb garden, where she insisted on smelling everything. "This one's lavender," she announced, crushing a sprig between her fingers. "I know what lavender smells like. Humor me. Smell." He leaned in, his face close to her cupped hands. "Very lavendery. You're the worst at this." "At smelling herbs? At appreciating nature's simple pleasures?" "I'm appreciating plenty." But he was looking at her, not the herbs. Paige's cheeks heated. "You're staring again." "It's becoming a habit. A creepy habit. A well-intentioned habit." She laughed, releasing the lavender. "Come on. I want to see the butterfly pavilion before it closes." The butterfly pavilion was a warm, humid dome, filled with flowering plants and hundreds of butterflies in every color imaginable. A monarch landed on Paige's shoulder, and she froze. "Don't move," Declan whispered, pulling out his phone. "I'm not moving. I'm barely breathing." He snapped a photo, then several more. The butterfly stayed for almost a full minute before fluttering away. Declan showed her the pictures, her face lit up with wonder, the butterfly's wings spread against her green blouse. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Paige's heart stuttered. "It's just a butterfly. I'm not talking about the butterfly." The air between them felt thick enough to swim through. Paige opened her mouth to respond, but another butterfly landed on Declan's head, and the moment dissolved into laughter. "Don't move," she mimicked, fumbling for her own phone. "Paige, I said don't move. This is photographic gold. By the time they left the gardens, the sun was setting, and Paige's phone was full of pictures. Butterflies, flowers, a particularly unflattering shot of Declan sneezing in the herb garden that she refused to delete, despite his protests. "Dinner?" he asked as they reached the parking lot. "I should probably go home, shower, change, or," he interrupted, "we could grab food and go hear some live music. There's a jazz bar downtown, very casual. You're fine as you are." Paige looked down at her jeans and blouse, then back up at him. "You sure?" "Positive. Unless you'd rather go home?" "No," she said quickly. "No, jazz sounds perfect." His smile could have lit the entire city. The Blue Note Jazz Club was exactly what Paige imagined when someone said jazz bar. Dim lighting, exposed brick, small round tables crowded close together, and a stage where a quartet was setting up their instruments. A bass, drums, saxophone, and piano. Declan secured them a table near the back, which meant squeezing onto a bench seat designed for people who enjoyed personal space violations. Their knees bumped as they settled in. "Sorry," Paige mumbled, trying to angle herself away. "It's fine." Declan's voice was low. Unavoidable, really. They ordered drinks, whiskey for him, wine for her, and the music started. The saxophone player was incredible, coaxing sounds from the instrument that seemed impossible. The music filled the small space, sultry and complex. Paige found herself swaying slightly to the rhythm. Declan noticed, smiling. "You like jazz?" he asked, leaning close so she could hear him over the music. "I've never really listened to it before, but yeah, this is amazing. My dad was obsessed with it. Used to play records every Sunday morning while Mom painted." His knee pressed against hers, and this time neither of them moved away. "Drove me crazy as a teenager. Now I can't imagine Sunday mornings without it." The song shifted into something slower, more intimate. Paige was intensely aware of every point where their bodies touched, knee, thigh, shoulder, as they leaned together to hear each other speak. The warmth of him, the subtle scent of his cologne. "Paige," he said, and something in his tone made her look up. His face was inches from hers, dark eyes searching her expression. The music swirled around them, the saxophone crying something beautiful and melancholy. Time seemed to slow. "Yeah?" Her voice came out breathless. "I really want to kiss you right now." Her heart stopped, started again, raced. "Why don't you?" "Because when I kiss you for the first time, I want to do it right. Not in a crowded bar where I can barely hear myself think." "That's very noble." "I'm trying." His hand found hers under the table, fingers intertwining. "But you're making it extremely difficult." "Good," she whispered. They sat like that through 3 more songs, hands clasped, bodies touching, the tension building with every passing minute. Paige had never wanted something so badly in her life. The not kissing was somehow more intense than kissing would have been. When the set ended and the house lights came up slightly, they blinked at each other like people emerging from a dream. "I should take you home," Declan said, his voice rough. "You should." Neither of them moved. Finally, Paige laughed, breaking the spell. "We're ridiculous." Completely. But he was smiling as he stood, pulling her up with him. The drive back to her apartment was quiet, charged with anticipation. When he walked her to her door, Paige's hands were shaking as she searched for her keys. "Today was perfect," she said, finally locating them in the bottom of her purse. "Thank you. Same time next week?" His hand came up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture achingly tender. "Always." He leaned in and Paige's breath caught, but instead of her lips, he pressed a kiss to her forehead, lingering for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Good night, Paige." "Good night, Declan." She watched him walk away, touching the spot where his lips had been. It wasn't the kiss she'd been hoping for, but somehow it felt like a promise. Soon. "I'm not ready to meet your friends," Paige said into the phone, pacing her apartment in her pajamas at 9 on a Wednesday evening. "Why not?" Declan sounded amused, which only increased her panic. "Because meeting friends is a thing, a relationship thing. And we haven't defined what this is yet. What do you want it to be?" Paige stopped pacing. "That's not fair. You can't just ask direct questions like that." "I'm a lawyer. Direct questions are my specialty." "CEO," she corrected automatically. "Same principle." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Look, it's just dinner. Marcus has been begging to meet the woman who assaulted me. His words, not mine." "Oh God. You told them." "Paige, I work with these people. Marcus saw me limping the next day. Questions were asked. She groaned, flopping onto her couch. They're going to think I'm insane. They're going to think you're interesting, which you are. He paused. Please? It would mean a lot to me. That's what got her. The genuine note in his voice, the vulnerability hidden beneath the casual request. Declan Whitmore, CEO of a major law firm, asking her to meet his friends like it mattered. Like she mattered. Fine, she sighed. But if anyone makes jokes about assault, I'm leaving. They're definitely going to make jokes about assault. I hate you. No, you don't. Friday at 7, I'll pick you up. Paige changed outfits 4 times before settling on dark jeans and a burgundy blouse that Claire insisted made her eyes look mysterious and alluring. She felt neither mysterious nor alluring, mostly just terrified. Declan arrived at 6:47, because of course he was early, and found her still debating earrings. You look beautiful, he said from her doorway. Stop overthinking. I'm not overthinking. You're wearing 1 hoop earring and 1 stud. Paige looked in the mirror and cursed. See? I'm a disaster. I can't meet your friends like this. Declan crossed the room and gently removed both earrings. There, perfect. I'm not wearing earrings. Exactly. One less thing to overthink. He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. They're going to love you. I promise. How do you know? Because He stopped abruptly, something flickering across his face. Because you're easy to love. Paige's heart forgot how to beat properly. Declan, we should go. Marcus gets cranky when people are late. I thought you were early. I'm always early. It's you who's always late. Hey! But he was already heading for the door, and the moment was gone. The restaurant was louder than Paige expected. A bustling Italian place with an open kitchen and the kind of chaotic energy that suggested good food and better wine. Declan's friends had claimed a large table in the back, and Paige felt 4 pairs of eyes lock onto her the moment they approached. Everyone, Declan said, his hand finding the small of her back. This is Paige. Paige, this is everyone. A dark-haired woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper smile stood first. I'm Simone. Corporate litigation. I've heard so much about you. The parking garage story, Paige asked weakly. In extensive detail. Simone grinned. I like you already. Anyone who can bring Declan to his knees is my kind of person. A tall black man with an infectious laugh stood next, extending his hand. Marcus, tax law. And yes, we're all going to make terrible jokes about the assault. It's unavoidable. Great, Paige muttered, shaking his hand. I'm Liam, said a sandy-haired man with kind eyes. Estate planning. And before you ask, yes, we're all lawyers. It's a hazard of working together. And I'm Jasmine, said a petite woman with a bright smile. Paralegal, and the only sane one at this table. Debatable, Marcus interjected. They all laughed, and Paige felt some of her tension ease. They ordered wine and appetizers, and conversation flowed easily. Simone grilled Paige about her graphic design work, genuinely interested in her freelance projects. Marcus told increasingly ridiculous stories about Declan in law school, each one more embarrassing than the last. He once cited the wrong case in moot court, Marcus said, eyes gleaming with mischief, realized it halfway through his argument, and had to improvise for 12 minutes. I won that case, Declan protested. On charm alone. The judges felt sorry for you. Paige was laughing so hard she nearly knocked over her wine glass. Declan caught it, shooting her a look that was half exasperated, half fond. See, he said, this is why I didn't want you to meet them. I love them, Paige declared. Traitor. As the evening progressed, Paige realized she actually was having fun. The teasing was affectionate, the conversation never lagged, and Declan's friends made a point of including her in everything. Simone was wickedly funny. Marcus was a shameless gossip. Liam was unexpectedly philosophical, and Jasmine had a talent for cutting through nonsense. But she also noticed things. The way Marcus watched Declan watch her. The significant looks Simone and Jasmine exchanged when Declan automatically refilled Paige's water glass. The slight smile on Liam's face when Declan's hand found Paige's under the table during dessert. They were being obvious. Embarrassingly obvious. So, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair with the expression of someone about to cause trouble. Are you two dating or what? The table went silent. Paige's mind went completely blank. She opened her mouth. No sound came out. We're friends, Declan said at the exact same moment Paige said, We're just hanging out. They looked at each other. The silence stretched. Right, Simone said slowly, her eyes dancing with amusement. Friends who look at each other like that. Like what? Paige asked. Like you're 2 seconds away from... Simone, Declan interrupted, his neck flushing red. We're not... It's not. We're taking things slow, Paige finished desperately. Very slow, Declan agreed. Glacially slow. Another pause. Then Marcus started laughing, and within seconds, the entire table had joined in. What? Paige demanded. Nothing, Jasmine said, wiping her eyes. You're just adorable, that's all. We're not adorable, Declan said firmly. We're very serious adults, Paige added. Uh-huh, Marcus smirked. And I'm the Queen of England. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of laughter and increasingly mortifying stories about both Declan and Paige. By the time they left, Paige's cheeks hurt from smiling, and her sides ached from laughing. They're going to talk about us the second we leave, she said, as Declan drove her home. Absolutely. Marcus is probably already texting the group chat. Do I want to know what he's saying? Probably not. Declan glanced at her, his expression soft. You were amazing tonight. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me. Your friends are wonderful. They liked you, I could tell. How? Marcus only makes fun of people he likes. Simone offered you her number, and Liam... He paused. Liam told me you're a keeper. Paige's breath caught. He did? Yeah. Declan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He did. They pulled up to her apartment, and the familiar tension settled between them. The same tension that appeared at the end of every evening, heavy with possibility and restraint. Good night, Paige, Declan said softly. Good night, Declan. But before she could open the door, he caught her hand. They asked if we were dating, he said, not looking at her. I know. We said no. I know. Were we lying? Paige's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. I don't know. Were we? He finally turned to face her, and the intensity in his dark eyes made her breath catch. I don't want to be just friends, Paige. Me neither. But I don't want to rush this either. I don't want to mess it up. You won't. You don't know that. She reached up, touching his face gently. Neither do you. For a long moment they just looked at each other. Then Declan pressed a kiss to her palm and let her go. Soon, he promised. Soon, she agreed. But as Paige lay in bed that night, she wondered how much longer soon could possibly take. The weeks that followed blurred into a pattern that Paige both loved and found maddening. She and Declan fell into an easy rhythm. Coffee on Tuesday mornings, dinner on Thursdays. Weekend adventures that ranged from farmers' markets to used bookstores to that one disastrous attempt at mini-golf where Paige accidentally hit Declan with her club. I swear it was an accident, she'd insisted as he rubbed his shin. You have a concerning history of violence against my person. You stepped into my swing. I'm starting to think you're doing this on purpose. They were together constantly, but somehow never quite crossing that final line. Declan would reach for her hand, and she'd let him. She'd lean against his shoulder during movies, and he'd pull her closer. They'd stand too close while waiting for coffee, sit too close at restaurants, exist in each other's space like they belonged there. But they hadn't kissed, hadn't defined what they were, existed in this strange, wonderful, torturous limbo. Claire was losing her mind. Just kiss him already, she'd yelled during their last coffee date. The sexual tension is visible from space. We're taking things slow. You're moving backward. At this rate, you'll be strangers by Christmas. It's complicated. It's really not. You like him. He likes you. Normal people would have kissed by now. We're not normal people. Clearly. Paige knew Claire was right, but every time she thought about making a move, fear crept in. What if it changed things? What if the reality didn't match the anticipation? What if she was building this up so much in her head that the actual kiss would be disappointing? What if it wasn't? That scared her most of all. She was curled up on her couch on a rainy Wednesday evening, halfway through a design project and completely absorbed, when her phone buzzed. Marcus and the gang are planning a beach trip next weekend. 3 days. You should come. D. Paige stared at the message, her heart doing complicated gymnastics. A beach trip? With your friends? Is that a problem? No, just... That's a lot of time together. With your friends. Who definitely think we're dating. We could prove them right. Paige nearly dropped her phone. She stared at the words for a full minute before typing back. What? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Nothing. Forget I said that. Come on the trip, I promise not to let you assault anyone. Her hands were shaking as she typed. Very funny. Where would I stay? We rented a beach house, 4 bedrooms. You'd have your own room. Unless you wanted to share. Declan. Kidding. Mostly. So is that a yes? Paige bit her lip, weighing her options. 3 days at the beach with Declan and his friends. 3 days of pretending they were just friends, while everyone around them knew better. 3 days of sun and sand and Declan in swim trunks, which her imagination was having entirely too much fun visualizing. Fine. But if Marcus makes one joke about the parking garage incident, I'm leaving. He's definitely going to make jokes about the parking garage incident. Then I'll assault him too. There's my girl. Paige's breath caught at those 3 words. My girl. Was she his girl? Were they doing this? Was this happening? Her phone buzzed again. Pack sunscreen. You're very fair-skinned and I don't want you to burn. Are you mothering me? I prefer the term caring from a distance. That's the same thing. Semantics. Just pack the sunscreen, Paige. Yes, sir. I like it when you're obedient. I'm never obedient. I noticed. It's infuriating. Good. She could practically see his smile through the phone. The drive to Seaside Heights took 3 hours, with Paige squished in the back seat between Jasmine and Liam, while Declan drove, and Marcus controlled the music from the passenger seat. Simone had driven separately with her girlfriend, promising to meet them there. No sad songs, Marcus declared, scrolling through his playlist. This is a party trip. It's a relaxation trip, Liam corrected. Same thing. Those are literally opposite things. Jasmine caught Paige's eye and mouthed, They're always like this. Paige grinned. Declan's eyes found hers in the rearview mirror frequently throughout the drive. Every time their gazes met, Paige felt that familiar flutter in her stomach, the one that suggested she was in way deeper than she'd intended to be. The beach house was beautiful, a weathered 2-story cottage right on the water, with a wraparound porch and windows that overlooked the ocean. Paige claimed a bedroom on the 2nd floor with a view of the waves and immediately texted Claire a picture. I'm going to die. 3 days of this, I can't handle it. You can and you will. Now go kiss that man. It's not that simple. It literally is. Paige changed into shorts and a tank top, braided her hair to keep it out of her face, and headed downstairs to find chaos. Marcus and Liam were arguing about the best way to light the grill. Simone and her girlfriend Nina had arrived and were unpacking groceries. Jasmine was on the porch with a book, and Declan was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, chopping vegetables with the focused intensity he brought to everything. Are you cook? Paige asked, sliding onto a bar stool. I'm chopping, that's not cooking. It's cooking adjacent. I can manage salad. Anything requiring actual heat I delegate. He glanced up, and his hands stilled when he saw her. You look comfortable. It's the beach. Everyone's comfortable at the beach. Not everyone. His eyes lingered on her bare shoulders before he visibly forced himself to focus back on the vegetables. How's your room? Perfect. Ocean view. Very romantic. Good. I'm right across the hall if you need anything. What would I need? I don't know. Extra towels, protection from Marcus's snoring, a daring midnight rescue. Paige laughed. Do you often perform daring midnight rescues? Only for damsels in distress. I'm not a damsel. No, he agreed, setting down the knife and looking at her properly. You're really not. The moment stretched, heavy with meaning. Then Marcus burst through the door, sweating and triumphant. I have conquered the grill. Bring forth the meat. The moment shattered. Declan shook his head, smiling. He's an idiot. You're idiot. Unfortunately. That first evening set the tone for the trip. Easy laughter, good food, the kind of comfortable chaos that came from people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. They ate dinner on the porch as the sun set, the ocean turning gold and pink and purple. Paige found herself next to Declan, their chairs close enough that their arms brushed. Later, after the dishes were done, and a fierce card game had ended with Liam's controversial victory, they all gravitated to the beach. Someone built a fire. Someone else produced marshmallows. Paige ended up with her feet in the sand, a blanket around her shoulders, and Declan beside her as the waves crashed in the darkness. This was a good idea, she said softly. The trip, all of it. His hand found hers under the blanket. Yeah, it was. And surrounded by friends and firelight and the endless rhythm of the ocean, Paige thought maybe, just maybe, soon was finally getting closer. The first full day at the beach started with pancakes that Marcus burned and coffee that Liam somehow made too strong, resulting in everyone being slightly over-caffeinated and chaotic by 9 in the morning. "Beach," Marcus declared, already wearing board shorts and reef-safe sunscreen that made him smell like coconuts. "Everyone to the beach immediately." "Some of us need to digest first," Simone protested, still working on her second cup of sludge coffee. "Weak. Nina, your girlfriend is weak." "Leave me out of this," Nina said, wisely staying neutral. Paige emerged from her room in denim shorts over her swimsuit, feeling self-conscious. She'd brought a simple black one-piece, practical and modest, but suddenly worried it was boring. What if Declan preferred something more? "You ready?" Declan appeared at her door and whatever thought she'd been having evaporated. He was wearing swim trunks and a white t-shirt that somehow made him look even more attractive. His dark hair was messy, like he'd barely run his fingers through it, and he was giving her that smile, the one that made her forget how to think properly. "Ready?" she managed. The beach was perfect. White sand, clear water, gentle waves. They claimed a spot with umbrellas and towels, and within minutes Marcus and Liam were body surfing, while Simone and Nina walked the shoreline looking for shells. Paige settled onto a towel with her book, supremely content. Declan sat beside her, close enough that their arms touched. "Not swimming?" she asked. "Later. This is nice. Reading my book over my shoulder. Making sure you're not reading anything inappropriate." She showed him the cover, a classic mystery novel. Very inappropriate. Murder and intrigue. Scandalous. He leaned back on his elbows, looking utterly relaxed in a way she'd never seen at the office or in the city. "I'm glad you came." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the waves and Marcus's distant whooping. Then a beach volleyball landed near their towels, and a woman jogged over to retrieve it. "Sorry about that." She was tall, tanned, with the kind of effortless beauty that made Paige immediately aware of her own frizzing hair and pale skin. "My aim is terrible." "No problem," Declan said politely. The woman didn't leave. Instead, she planted herself in the sand, smiling brightly. "You two locals, we're visiting from California and desperately need restaurant recommendations." "We're visiting too," Declan said. "Oh, where from?" She touched his arm, laughing at something that wasn't remotely funny. "You look so familiar. Have we met before?" Paige's stomach twisted unpleasantly. The woman was still touching Declan's arm, still smiling that perfect smile, still acting like Paige didn't exist. "I don't think so," Declan said, shifting slightly away from her hand. "You sure? Maybe at a conference. What do you do?" "Corporate law." "Ooh, a lawyer! That's so impressive." The laugh was too loud, too bright. "I'm in marketing. Maybe we've crossed paths professionally." Paige wanted to say something, should say something, but her throat felt tight, and she was embarrassingly close to doing something dramatic, like dragging Declan away by his ear. Finally, mercifully, the woman's friends called her back to their volleyball game. She gave Declan one last lingering look before jogging off. "That was," Declan started. "Subtle," Paige finished, her voice sharper than intended. "Very subtle." He looked at her, eyebrows raised. "Are you—" "I'm going for a walk." She stood abruptly, not meeting his eyes. She made it about 50 feet before she heard him following. "Paige, wait. I'm fine." "You're clearly not fine." She whirled around. "Some woman just flirted with you right in front of me, Declan, and we haven't—" She gestured helplessly between them. "I don't even know what we are, so I have no right to be upset, but I am anyway, and I hate it." His expression softened. "You're jealous." "I'm not jealous." "You're very jealous." "Okay, fine. Maybe a little jealous." "Happy?" "Extremely." He stepped closer, and his smile was infuriatingly pleased. "For the record, I wasn't interested. At all." She was very pretty. "I didn't notice." Liar. "I only notice one person on this beach, Paige. And she's currently glaring at me like I committed a crime." Despite herself, Paige felt her anger deflating. "You're impossible. And you're adorable when you're jealous." "I hate you." "No, you don't." He reached out and tucked a wind-blown strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. "Come on. Let's actually go for a walk." They walked along the waterline, their feet in the surf, not quite touching, but close enough. Paige's irritation faded, replaced by embarrassment. "Sorry," she mumbled. "That was childish." "That was honest. I liked it." "You liked me being jealous?" "I liked knowing you care enough to be jealous." Before she could respond, a voice called out from behind them. "Hey, you with the red hair!" They turned to find a tanned surfer with sun-bleached hair jogging toward them, board under his arm. He was objectively attractive in that effortless beach guy way, all easy smiles and casual confidence. "Are you interested in a stand-up paddle lesson?" He directed the question at Paige, his smile warm. "I teach lessons every morning. First one's free." "Oh, I don't really—" "She already has plans," Declan interrupted, his voice pleasant but firm. The surfer blinked. "For this morning or in general?" Paige looked at Declan in surprise. He was staring at the surfer with an expression she'd never seen before. Possessive, territorial, decidedly unlawyer-like. The surfer held up his hands, backing away. "Right, cool, no problem, man." When he was gone, Paige turned to Declan with raised eyebrows. "I already have plans?" His neck flushed. "You do? With me? Is that so?" "Yes." "What if I wanted surfing lessons?" "Do you want surfing lessons?" "No." "Then the point is moot." But he looked sheepish now, running a hand through his hair. "Sorry, that was—" "Jealous?" Paige supplied, unable to hide her smile. "Protective. Same thing. Semantics." She laughed, bumping her shoulder against his. "So we're both jealous idiots?" "Apparently." "Good." She slipped her hand into his, threading their fingers together. "Glad we cleared that up." They walked back to find Marcus building an elaborate sandcastle, while Liam provided architectural criticism. The rest of the day passed in a blur of swimming, terrible sandwiches from a beachside shack, and an intense game of frisbee that ended with Simone's controversial victory. But as the sun set and they gathered around another bonfire, Paige couldn't stop thinking about the way Declan had looked at that surfer. The possessiveness in his voice when he'd said, "She already has plans." Like she was his. Like he was hers. Maybe, she thought as his hand found hers again in the darkness, they were finally getting somewhere. The third day dawned bright and hot, the kind of beach day that existed in postcards and vacation fantasies. Paige woke to the smell of actual edible breakfast. Apparently Jasmine had taken mercy on them and made French toast. "Bless you," Paige said, stumbling into the kitchen still in her pajamas. "Someone had to save us from Marcus's cooking." Jasmine slid a plate across the counter. "He tried to make bacon earlier. It's still smoking outside." "I heard that," Marcus called from the porch. After breakfast, they decided to explore the small beach town, a collection of surf shops, ice cream stands, and weathered storefronts, with a charm that felt authentic rather than manufactured. Paige found herself walking beside Declan while the others scattered to various shops. "Ice cream?" he suggested, nodding toward a colorful cart near the boardwalk. "It's 10 in the morning. It's vacation. Time is meaningless." Wise words from a CEO. "I'm very philosophical about dessert." They ordered cones, salted caramel for her, dark chocolate for him, and wandered toward the beach. The morning sun was already warm on Paige's shoulders, and she'd given up trying to control her wind-swept hair. "This is perfect," she sighed, taking a bite of her cone. "It is." She glanced at Declan and caught him staring. Again. "You're doing the thing." "What thing?" "The staring thing." "Can't help it. You have ice cream on your face." "What? Where?" Paige wiped at her mouth frantically. "Here." Before she could process what was happening, Declan reached out, his thumb catching the corner of her mouth where a smear of caramel had escaped. But instead of wiping it on a napkin like a normal person, he brought his thumb to his own mouth, licking the ice cream off with devastating casualness. Paige forgot how to breathe. Her entire body went hot, and it had nothing to do with the sun. She stood frozen watching him, her heart hammering so hard she was certain he could hear it. His dark eyes never left hers, and the slight smile on his lips suggested he knew exactly what he'd just done to her. "You—" Her voice came out strangled. "That was helpful," he supplied innocently. "Not the word I was going for." "What word were you going for?" "Devastating. Unfair. Possibly illegal." He laughed, the sound low and pleased. "Want me to do it again?" "No, maybe." "Stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" Like you're thinking things that are not appropriate for a public beach. Who says I'm thinking inappropriate things? Your face is saying it. My face is innocent. Your face is trouble. They finished their ice cream in charged silence, the tension between them thick enough to cut. When they reached the water's edge, Paige kicked off her sandals, letting the waves wash over her feet. Coming in? Declan asked, already waist-deep in the water. I'll just stay here. Scared? No. Then come in. Paige bit her lip. I can't swim. He blinked. What? I never learned. Grew up landlocked, never took lessons, and now I'm too embarrassed to admit I'm a 28-year-old who can't swim. Declan waded back to shore, water streaming off his skin, and Paige tried very hard not to stare at the way his wet swim trunks clung to his hips. Come here, he said. Declan. Without warning, he scooped her up, one arm under her knees, the other around her back. Paige yelped, grabbing onto his shoulders. What are you doing? Teaching you to not be afraid of water. By drowning me? By showing you it's safe. He waded back into the ocean, carrying her like she weighed nothing. I've got you. Trust me. The water rose to his waist, then his chest. Paige clung tighter, her heart racing for entirely different reasons now. She could feel every muscle in his shoulders, the solid warmth of his chest against her side, the easy strength in his arms. Declan, this is... Wrap your legs around my waist, he instructed, his voice rough. It's easier that way. Paige's brain short-circuited. What? Your legs, around my waist, so I can hold you better. With shaking hands, and silently cursing herself for being so affected, she shifted position, wrapping her legs around him, her arms going around his neck. Suddenly they were face to face, chest to chest, with nothing between them but wet swimsuit fabric and rapidly dissolving willpower. Declan's breathing changed, becoming shallow and uneven. His hands tightened on her waist, fingers spreading across her back. The water lapped gently around them, but Paige barely noticed. She was drowning in his eyes, in the feel of his body against hers, in the want that was written clearly across his face. Paige, he said, his voice strained. Yeah? We need to... He stopped, closing his eyes briefly. When he opened them, there was something desperate in his expression. We need to get out of the water now. Why? His eyes dropped to her mouth, then back up. Because I'm about 2 seconds away from kissing you in front of everyone on this beach, and I promised myself I'd do it right. Then she felt it. The unmistakable evidence of his desire pressing against her thigh through the water. Understanding crashed over her, followed by a wave of heat that had nothing to do with embarrassment and everything to do with want. Oh, she breathed. Yeah. Oh. His neck was flushed red. So if you could please unwrap yourself from me, I can... Right. Yes. Sorry. She scrambled out of his arms, splashing into the water ungracefully. Declan stayed where he was, diving under the surface and staying there longer than seemed necessary. When he finally emerged, he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to. It's fine. It's not fine. It's mortifying. It's human. It's embarrassing. Paige couldn't help it. She laughed. His eyes snapped to hers, wounded, and she quickly reached out to touch his arm. I'm not laughing at you, she said. I'm laughing because we're ridiculous. Both of us dancing around this thing between us like we're teenagers. Maybe we are ridiculous. Definitely. She moved closer, water swirling around them. But I don't care anymore. Paige, take me to dinner tonight. A real date. Just us. No friends, no distractions, no more waiting. His eyes darkened. You sure? Completely. Okay. He smiled, slow and devastating. Tonight. Tonight, she agreed. They stayed in the water a bit longer, ostensibly to cool off, but really because neither wanted to break the moment. When they finally returned to shore, their friends were suspiciously quiet, identical knowing smiles on every face. Don't, Declan warned. We didn't say anything, Marcus said innocently. You're thinking it loud enough. Paige just smiled, already counting down the hours until dinner. Until everything changed. The drive back from the beach was torture. They'd planned to leave after breakfast, but the morning had been a series of delays. Marcus couldn't find his wallet. Simone's car had a flat tire that needed changing, and by the time they actually got on the road, it was nearly noon. Paige sat in the back seat again, but this time the comfortable chatter was gone. Declan drove in silence, his jaw tight, barely participating in Marcus and Liam's conversation about work. Every time Paige caught his eye in the rearview mirror, he looked away. Something had shifted after the ocean incident. Or maybe nothing had shifted, and that was the problem. They'd agreed on dinner, a real date. But as the beach faded behind them and reality crept back in, Paige felt doubt crawling up her spine. What if he'd changed his mind? What if the moment had passed? What if they'd waited too long and now it was just awkward? When Declan finally pulled up to her apartment building, Paige's hands were shaking as she unbuckled her seatbelt. "Thanks for the ride," she said, grabbing her bag from the trunk. "Yeah, no problem." Declan stood by the car, hands in his pockets, looking everywhere except at her. "So, dinner." "Right, I'll text you." "Okay." They stood there for a long, painful moment. Then Declan cleared his throat. "I should get going." "Traffic." "Sure, of course." Paige forced a smile. "Thanks again for inviting me. It was fun." "Yeah, fun." He finally looked at her, and something in his expression made her chest ache. "Paige, It's okay," she interrupted, because she couldn't bear to hear him make excuses. "We're good, I'll talk to you later." She hurried inside before he could respond, before she could see the relief or regret or whatever was on his face. Once inside her apartment, she dropped her bag and pressed her back against the door, fighting tears. What had she expected? A dramatic declaration in front of her building? A kiss goodbye? They'd had a moment, several moments. But moments didn't mean anything if you couldn't follow through. Her phone buzzed. "How was the trip?" Claire texted. "Good. Exhausting. Need to sleep for a week. Did you and Declan finally make out?" "No." "Paige. I don't want to talk about it." But of course Claire called immediately. "What happened?" her sister demanded. "You were at the beach for 3 days. How did you not?" "We just didn't, okay?" Paige threw herself onto her couch. It was weird. The drive back was weird. Everything's weird now. Did something happen? Yes. No. Maybe. Paige groaned. "We had this moment in the ocean, and it was intense, and he said we'd go to dinner. But then on the drive back he barely looked at me. And when he dropped me off it was like talking to a stranger. He's probably just freaking out. Or he's realized this whole thing is a mistake. Don't catastrophize." "I'm not. I'm being realistic." Paige stared at her ceiling. "Maybe we're better as friends. Maybe all this tension and waiting has built things up too much, and the reality can't possibly match. Or," Claire said firmly, "maybe you're both scared and need to actually talk to each other like adults." "I hate when you're logical." "Someone has to be." 2 days passed, then 4, then a week. Declan didn't text about dinner. Paige told herself she didn't care. She threw herself into work, taking on extra projects, redesigning her entire portfolio website, anything to keep her mind occupied. She ignored Claire's concerned calls and Marcus's suspicious just checking in messages. On day 10, she finally broke and texted Declan. "Hey, how are you?" 3 hours later. "Good. Busy with work. You?" "Same." End of conversation. Paige stared at her phone, something hard and painful lodging in her chest. This was it then. Whatever they'd been building had crumbled the moment they'd tried to make it real. Day 12, she cried in the shower. Day 13, she deleted their text thread, then immediately restored it from her phone's backup. Day 14, Claire staged an intervention, showing up with wine and Chinese food. "You look terrible," her sister announced. "Thanks. Really helpful. When's the last time you washed your hair?" "Yesterday, or maybe the day before." Paige accepted the wine glass. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're miserable. And I'm guessing he's miserable too because he's been walking around the office like someone killed his dog." "He doesn't have a dog." "That's not the point." Claire sat beside her, expression softening. "What are you so afraid of?" "Getting hurt, looking stupid, losing the friendship we had." Paige's voice cracked. "All of it. But you're already hurt. And you've already lost the friendship, because you can't go back to how things were." Claire squeezed her hand. "So what do you really have to lose?" Paige didn't have an answer. That night, lying in bed, she drafted and deleted 7 different texts to Declan. Finally, she gave up and turned off her phone. Tomorrow. She'd figure it out tomorrow. But tomorrow came, and she still had no idea what to say to the man who'd somehow become essential to her happiness without her even realizing it. Day 15 brought Paige to Claire's office for lunch, armed with apology sandwiches and a desperate need to escape her apartment. "You look better," Claire observed, accepting the turkey on rye. "I showered. That's about as good as it's getting." They ate in Claire's small office, catching up on normal things, work gossip, their mother's latest redecorating project, anything except Declan Whitmore. Paige was just starting to feel almost human again when Claire's phone buzzed. "I need to grab something from the file room," Claire said, standing. "Be right back." Paige nodded, scrolling through her phone without really seeing it. She was so absorbed she didn't notice someone enter until a smooth voice said, "You're Paige, right?" She looked up to find a man in an expensive suit, dark hair styled perfectly, confidence radiating from every pore. She recognized him vaguely from the beach trip, a friend of a friend, someone Marcus had introduced at dinner one night. "Yes?" she said cautiously. "Robert Chen. We met briefly in Seaside Heights." He extended his hand, which she shook automatically. "You came with Declan's group." "Right. Hi. I was actually hoping to run into you." His smile was charming, practiced. "I've been meaning to ask, would you be interested in dinner sometime? There's this new French place downtown I've been wanting to try." Paige's brain stuttered. Was he asking her out? "Oh, I don't think... She's busy." The voice cut through the office like a blade. Paige's head snapped up to find Declan standing in the doorway, his expression thunderous. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, hair slightly disheveled, tie loosened, jaw shadowed with stubble. But his eyes were sharp and focused entirely on Robert. "Declan," Robert said smoothly, not quite hiding his surprise. "I didn't realize you were—" "She's busy," Declan repeated, his voice hard. "Permanently." "I can speak for myself," Paige interjected, standing up, anger flaring hot in her chest. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of silence, and now he was going to show up and make decisions for her. Robert looked between them, clearly sensing the tension. I should go." He backed toward the door, nearly colliding with Declan in his haste to escape. The moment he was gone, Paige whirled on Declan. "What the hell was that? Who is he? None of your business. Were you going to say yes?" His eyes were wild, desperate. "Were you going to go out with him? Again? None of your business. You can't ignore me for 2 weeks and then show up demanding—" She didn't get to finish because Declan crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed her hand and pulled her out of Claire's office. He hauled her down the hall and into an empty conference room, slamming the door behind them. "What are you—" He kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative or anything like the first kiss she'd imagined. It was desperate, consuming, the kiss of a man who'd been holding back for too long and had finally snapped. His hands cupped her face, angling her head as he deepened the kiss, swallowing her surprised gasp. Paige's mind went blank. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, matching his intensity with her own. 2 weeks of frustration and longing poured into the kiss, neither of them gentle, both of them demanding. Declan walked her backward until her legs hit the conference table. Without breaking the kiss, he lifted her onto it, stepping between her thighs, his body pressing against hers. His hands slid from her face to her waist, gripping tightly as if afraid she might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both gasping for air, Declan pressed his forehead to hers. "I can't," he breathed. "I can't watch you go out with someone else. I tried to stay away, tried to give you space, but I can't. You're driving me insane, Paige. Every minute without you is torture. Then why did you disappear?" Her voice cracked. "Why did you ignore me?" "Because I was terrified." He pulled back to look at her, his eyes raw with emotion. "I've never felt like this before. Out of control. Completely lost. And it scared the hell out of me. You're an idiot." "I know. 2 weeks, Declan. You made me miserable for 2 weeks. I was miserable too. Ask anyone at the office. I've been unbearable." His hands tightened on her waist. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I'm done being scared. I want this. I want you. Only you." Paige's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. "Took you long enough." Relief flooded his face. "Is that a yes? What's the question?" "Be mine. Officially. No more waiting, no more uncertainty. Be my girlfriend, Paige." She pretended to consider it, enjoying the flash of panic in his eyes. "Will you stop being stupid?" "I'll try. And stop ignoring me." "Never again. And stop letting random women flirt with you." "I never encouraged—" She kissed him, cutting off his protest. When she pulled back, she smiled. Yes, 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 I'll be your girlfriend, even though you're dramatic and stubborn and made me cry. You cried? His expression crumpled. Paige, shut up and kiss me again. He did. 2 days after the conference room kiss that had probably scandalized half of Claire's office, Declan invited Paige to his apartment for dinner. I'm cooking, he announced over the phone. You don't cook. I'm attempting to cook. There's a difference. Should I bring backup food? Your faith in me is touching. Paige arrived at his downtown loft at 7, armed with wine and low expectations. But when Declan opened the door in jeans and a Henley, barefoot and relaxed, her breath caught. This was Declan off-duty, unguarded, and somehow even more devastating than the suited CEO version. Hi, he said, pulling her inside and kissing her immediately. Hi yourself. She smiled against his lips. What are you making? Pasta. How hard can it be? Famous last words. His kitchen was modern and clearly underused, all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that looked almost untouched. Declan had ingredients spread everywhere. Tomatoes, garlic, basil, pasta, olive oil, in a way that suggested enthusiasm over expertise. You're in over your head, Paige observed, hopping onto the counter. Probably. He was chopping garlic with intense concentration. But I wanted to do something nice for you. Her heart melted. You could have ordered takeout. Where's the romance in that? She watched him work, occasionally offering advice, mostly just enjoying the view. There was something endearing about seeing him struggle with something as simple as cooking. This man who commanded boardrooms and negotiated million-dollar deals, frowning at a pot of boiling water like it was personally offending him. The pasta's ready, he announced finally, draining it with more force than necessary, and the sauce. Simmering, he turned to her, setting down the pot. I think I did it. I actually cooked something. Don't celebrate yet. I haven't tasted it. He moved to stand between her legs, hands on either side of her hips. You're very skeptical of my abilities. You burned toast last week. That was 1 time. It was 3 times. Semantics. He leaned in, brushing his lips against hers. Thank you for coming. Thank you for not poisoning me yet. He laughed, and the sound vibrated through her chest. The kiss deepened. Paige's hands sliding into his hair, his hands gripping her waist. The kitchen, the cooking, everything faded, except the feel of him against her. Declan's lips traced down her neck, and Paige's head fell back, her breath coming faster. His hands slid under her shirt, warm against her skin, and she gasped. Declan, tell me to stop, he murmured against her throat. Tell me this is too fast. Don't you dare stop. He pulled back to look at her, his dark eyes searching her face. You're sure? Completely sure. She pulled him back to her, kissing him with everything she had. I want this, I want you. Something shifted in his expression, restraint giving way to desire. He kissed her again, deeper, more demanding, his hands sliding her shirt up and over her head. Paige fumbled with the buttons of his Henley until he gave up and pulled it off himself. The sauce was definitely burning now. The food, Paige started. Declan reached over and turned off the stove without breaking eye contact. Then he lifted her from the counter, her legs wrapping around his waist instinctively. I never imagined, he murmured against her lips as he carried her toward the bedroom, that a Joel Harder would change my entire life. Paige laughed, the sound breathless and giddy. Worst decision I ever made. Best decision I ever made was giving you my number. He laid her on his bed with a gentleness that contrasted with the intensity in his eyes. For a moment, they just looked at each other, the weight of what was about to happen settling between them. You're beautiful, Declan said softly, his hand tracing her face with reverence. So beautiful. So are you. What followed was tender and passionate, vulnerable and intense. Declan worshipped every inch of her skin like she was precious, murmuring words of adoration that made her heart ache. And when they finally came together, it felt less like a first time and more like coming home. Later, tangled in his sheets with her head on his chest, Paige smiled. The pasta's definitely ruined, she said. Worth it. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Completely worth it. 6 months of dating Declan Whitmore taught Paige several important things. First, the man was incapable of being on time for casual events, but pathologically early for anything work-related. Second, He absolutely could not cook despite repeated attempts, and she'd instituted a kitchen ban after the great pasta fire of their first night together. Third, he was protective to the point of ridiculousness. She'd had to talk him down from confronting a barista who'd gotten her order wrong. But most importantly, she learned that falling in love with Declan was the easiest thing she'd ever done. He still teased her mercilessly about the parking garage incident, bringing it up at every possible opportunity. Their friends found it endlessly entertaining, Marcus especially enjoying embellishing the story, until Paige sounded like a trained assassin and Declan like a helpless victim. "I wasn't helpless," Declan always protested. "You were on your knees," Marcus would counter. "Because she assaulted me. Potato, potato." But beneath the teasing and the laughter, their relationship had settled into something solid and real. Declan left toothbrushes at her apartment. She kept spare clothes at his loft. They knew each other's coffee orders, favorite books, the exact tone of voice that meant "I need space" versus "I need you." It was comfortable and passionate, easy and intense, everything Paige had never known she wanted. So when Declan asked her to meet him at Claire's office building one Tuesday evening, claiming he needed to pick something up, she thought nothing of it, until she arrived at the parking garage where it had all begun. The space was empty except for Declan's car and him, leaning against the hood in his suit, that familiar half-smile on his face. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting the same harsh glow as that first night. "This feels familiar," Paige said, walking toward him cautiously. "Should I be worried?" "Probably." He pushed off the car, meeting her halfway. "Though I'm hoping for less violence this time. No promises." He laughed, but there was something nervous in his expression, something that made Paige's heart start racing. He took both her hands in his, and she noticed they were trembling slightly. "Declan? What's going on?" "6 months ago," he started, "I was walking through this parking garage minding my own business when I picked up a wallet some careless woman had dropped." "Hey!" "And I tried to return it to her," he continued, squeezing her hands. "I tried to do a good deed, and you know what happened. I need you in a very sensitive area. You brought me to my knees." His eyes were soft, full of emotion. "And I've been there ever since. You completely destroyed me, Paige Holloway." "In the best possible way." Her breath caught. "Declan..." He let go of her hands and dropped to one knee, right there in the parking garage where she'd assaulted him 6 months ago. From his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. "Look," he said, his voice wavering between serious and playful. "I'm in a vulnerable position again. Try not to attack me this time." Paige's hands flew to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. "You're ridiculous. I'm in love with you." He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the fluorescent light and shattered it into rainbows. "Marry me, Paige. Make this parking garage assault thing permanent. Make all of it permanent." She was laughing and crying at the same time, nodding frantically. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." He stood, sliding the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and then he was kissing her, lifting her off the ground, spinning her in a circle while she laughed against his mouth. "I love you," she said between kisses. "Even though you're dramatic and overprotective and can't cook." "I love you," he replied. "Even though you're chronically late and violent and have terrible taste in movies." "My taste in movies is excellent. You cried during a car commercial." "It was emotional." They were still arguing when Claire burst through the stairwell door, followed by Marcus, Simone, Liam, Jasmine, and Nina, all of them cheering and clapping. "About time," Marcus shouted. "We've been waiting in the stairwell for 20 minutes, Claire complained. "You took forever with the proposal." "I was being romantic," Declan protested. "You were being long-winded," Simone corrected, but she was smiling. They celebrated right there in the parking garage, passing around a bottle of champagne that Marcus had somehow smuggled in. And as Paige looked around at their friends, at the ring on her finger, at Declan's face full of love and laughter, she thought that maybe getting lost in a parking garage 6 months ago had been the best wrong turn she'd ever taken. 1 year later, Paige stood in the kitchen of their new house, the one they'd bought together 3 months after the wedding, watching her husband attempt to make breakfast. Again. "Declan, the eggs are burning." "They're not burning. They're getting crispy." "That's the same thing." He abandoned the pan with a sigh, coming to wrap his arms around her from behind. His hands settled on her rounded belly, 5 months pregnant, and showing. If this baby inherits your reflexes, he murmured against her neck, I'm going to need protective gear, maybe a full suit of armor. Paige laughed, covering his hands with hers. And if the baby inherits your tendency to dramatize everything, then we're going to have the most entertaining child in history. He pressed a kiss to her temple, then turned her to face him. Whatever they inherit, they're going to be perfect. How do you know? Because they're half you. His smile turned mischievous, though also half me, so they might have some flaws. Might? Will. Definitely will. He kissed her softly. But perfectly imperfect. Dangerously perfect. Paige pulled him closer, breathing in the scent of burnt eggs and Declan's cologne, listening to her husband's heartbeat, feeling their baby move under his hand. 6 months ago, if someone had told her that accidentally assaulting a stranger would lead to this, to love, to marriage, to a family, she would have thought they were insane. But here she was, and she wouldn't change a single thing, not even the parking garage. Leave your comment and share this story with someone special. It truly helps us keep bringing new stories to you. And if you want to follow every chapter of this emotional journey, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Your support makes all the difference.